The first book in the Bible is called Genesis, and Genesis simply means beginnings.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
In the beginning, God created. You know, to create something is to exhibit profound power. It's even more incredible to realize that God created everything out of nothing. We as humans create, but only with pre-existing material. We paint pictures using oil and canvas. We build houses out of wood, mortar, and brick. But when God created, He used nothing. Now, to create on such a grand scale with no materials, no blueprints, no workshop, no tools, takes abilities totally foreign to us. The Bible tells us that creation was possible simply because God is able. God's power knows no limits.
Great is our Lord, and mighty in power.
He is truly all-powerful. God not only has the power, but He also has a knowledge. He is all-knowing.
Great is our Lord. His understanding has no limit.
God knows everything. He doesn't need to check with the architect or engineer for further information. His knowledge is unlimited. In creation, God was not confined to someone else's blueprint. When man is in the process of building or shaping an object, he needs a workplace, such as a shop or a studio. But God needed no workshop in which to fashion His creation, for the Bible tells us that God is everywhere present at one time.
Am I only a God nearby, declares the Lord, and not a God far away? Can anyone hide in secret places so that I cannot see Him, declares the Lord? Do not I fill heaven and earth, declares the Lord.
Only God possesses this triad of attributes: all-knowing, all-powerful, and present everywhere at one time. And only a faultless combination of these three attributes would be able to create the complex realm in which we live.
He made the earth by His power. He founded the world by His wisdom, and stretched out the heavens by His understanding.
The angels possess none of these characteristics, even as powerful and as intelligent as they are. And us? We don't even come close to this sort of ability. For us to construct even the simplest object takes combined human effort. For example, let's say we decided to make a metal chair. You know, the sort of chair that you find in a school auditorium. For starters, we need what? We need metal. Well, where do you find metal? Where do you find metal? Okay, it's in rocks, right? Now, how many of you know what sort of stones contains metal? If you were to go outside here and pick up a rock, can you look at it and say, oh, this one has iron ore in it? How many of you know that? Well, I see one hand, so at least we're started. What we need is a geologist or a prospector who knows a great deal about finding the rocks that carry iron ore. Now, let's assume that we find these right rocks. What's the next step? The rocks are in the ground. So what do we need? We need someone that knows how to manufacture dynamite. Anyone know that here? You wouldn't admit to it, would you? Not anymore. But we need someone who knows how to manufacture that sort of thing and how to make mining equipment. And then we want miners who have the expertise to extract the ore safely from the ground. But you know what? You still can't build a chair with a mountain of iron ore. You know, if there's a pile of rocks sitting in front of you and they're the right ones, you can't build a chair with that. They need to be melted down. Can anyone here build a fire hot enough to melt rocks? Anyone here? We're stuck. Already we're stuck. We can't go any further here. We need those who know the smelting and alloy process. So we found some fellows that know that, but guess what? They just poured us a glob of steel. And maybe at this point we'd be ready to sit on it, after it's cooled down, that is. But whatever the case, to make a chair, it will necessitate having someone who understands how to roll that block into a flat piece of metal, just the right thickness. Then we'll need to bend the steel and weld it. Welding? Sounds like we'll require someone with knowledge in electricity and how to generate it. As you can see, making a metal chair is a complicated process. And we haven't even touched on how to make the paint, specifically the kind that will adhere to metal and in the color we want. And what about the feet here? What are these made out of? That's right, plastic. Plastic, let me see, that's a petroleum product. Now let me see, drilling a well to find oil takes, listen, all we wanted to do was to make a metal chair. All we wanted to do. And yet, it takes combined human effort. It takes hundreds of people with combined knowledge and allied skills just to make a metal chair. No one person knows it all. None of us, human or angelic, can be compared in even the smallest way to God who knows all things, who has all the power to create from nothing and is everywhere so that He can place that object He made wherever He chooses. God stands alone.
Ah, sovereign Lord, you have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and outstretched arm. Nothing is too hard for you.
Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and His understanding no one can fathom.
The account of this monumental creative act is recorded simply and concisely. The most staggering information is stated in just a few words. For example, the biblical text makes only passing reference to the means by which God accomplished His creation. He didn't use hands or tools. God just spoke the cosmos and all it contained into existence.
And God said, "Let there be light."
The universe was formed at God's command.
Once again, such ability confounds our imagination. We can't comprehend speaking a metal chair into existence, let alone the entire universe. But then, what would one expect from an all-powerful God? You know, when you really think about it, you would expect Him to be just that powerful. The Bible confirms that as fact.
By the word of the Lord were the heavens made, their starry host by the breath of His mouth. Let all the earth fear the Lord. Let all the people of the world revere Him. For He spoke, and it came to be. He commanded, and it stood firm.
So that's the way it all started. God spoke light into existence. He named the light day, and the darkness He called night. And according to the Bible, that was the first day of creation.
Well, Paul, I don't know how it is with you, but it's easier for me to comprehend God being all-knowing and all-powerful than to understand how He can be present everywhere at the same time.
I know what you mean, but the Bible is very clear. God is everywhere present.
And you know, the idea is comforting. If I'm traveling away from my family, I want to know that God is with them, but I'd also like to know that the Lord is with me.
Well, of course, on the other hand, if God is everywhere present and I do wrong, there's no place to hide.
That's true.
Now, let me mention one other thing here. The fact that God is everywhere at one time needs to be differentiated from the concept of pantheism. Simply put, pantheism teaches that God is in everything. He's in the clouds, He's in the trees, he's in the wind, in people, that sort of thing. Now, in contrast to that, the Bible teaches that the Lord is distinct from His creation. He's not part of it at all.
Okay, now that's a good point, because we hear that concept of God all the time on TV and in books. It's just so common.
Well, pantheism is not what the Bible teaches. The Scripture defines God as a being, not some sort of abstract force or transcendent reality.